Thank you.
You need to mute everybody, Sammy, first.
Okay. So good evening, Chairman. I can confirm it is now 6 o'clock. The live stream has commenced and we are ready to start the meeting.
Yeah, thanks very much, Sammy. Good evening and welcome to the Policy and Resources Committee of the 23rd of March 2021. I would like to advise that today we'll be using Teams to provide a live stream to members of the public, and please ask that you bear with us as we are dealing with numerous internet connections and sometimes this can cause a slight delay. Members, as you know, today is Reflection Day. It's a year ago today that we went into our first national lockdown, and to mark that, I would like us to pause for a brief moment before we start this meeting. It's been an incredibly difficult year for our country, and I'm sure that you will join with me that all our thoughts are with those who have sadly lost loved ones and friends during this past year. So if we could just have a brief moment's silence before we start the meeting. Thank you. Thank you, members and officers. And Sammy, if you'd like to proceed.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that Sammy Wintle will be your team's host for today. Matt Seven is here to offer IT support if required, and Sammy Wintle and Christina Webb will be clerking the meeting today. During the meeting, all participants except for the Chairman will be muted, and this should remain during the whole of the meeting unless you have asked to speak. May I take this opportunity to remind members that all members are invited to participate in the meeting, but would ask that you request to speak through the chat bar. The Chairman will be notified of your request and he will then invite you forward to speak. Once you have been called forward to speak, please could we ask you to unmute yourself and then once spoken, mute yourself again. When asking a question, please could we ask members to refer to page numbers within the report or agenda for ease to officers. If we have to adjourn the meeting this evening, the Chairman will advise of this and the anticipated length of adjournment. When voting on an item this evening, this will be undertaken by electronic voting and members will find the link within the chat bar when voting is required. When confirming the minutes and agreeing to exclude the public, unless any member raises an objection on these matters, these will be confirmed by assent. I can confirm that we have no member substitutions today. And Chairman, if I can just complete a roll call of members present, please. Councillor Smith.
Present.
Councillors Carpenter.
Present.
Councillor Flaxman-Taylor.
Present.
Councillor Grant.
Present.
Councillor Hammond.
Present.
Councillor Myers.
Present.
Councillor Plant.
Present.
Councillor Wainwright.
Present.
Councillor Brian Walker.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Colin Walker.
Here.
Councillor Wells.
Present.
Councillor Williamson.
Present.
And Councillor Tony Wright.
Present.
Thank you. Chairman, to advise officers present in the meeting today, we have Sheila Oxtoby, Chief Executive Officer, Caroline Watling, Monitoring Officer, Karen Sly, Finance Director, Paula Boy, Strategic Director, Kate Watts, Strategic Director, Sam Hubbard, Strategic Planning Manager, Sarah Tate, Head of Organisational Development, Lorna Snow, Financial Services Manager, Miranda Lee, Head of Customer Services, Stuart Brabham, Revenue and Benefits Service Manager, Simon Best, Funding and Regeneration Manager, Sammy Wintle, Corporate Services Manager, and Christina Webb, Executive Services Officer. Thank you, Chairman. We can now start the agenda items.
Thank you very much, Sammy. Good evening, everyone. Right, so as Sammy said, item 1, there are no apologies for absence. So we move on then, members, to item 2, which is declarations of interest. Have I any declarations of interest? I can't see no one say anything. Okay then, right, so we'll move on then, members, to item 3, which is the minutes of the meeting which was held on the 9th of February 2021. They're on pages 4 to 10 of tonight's agenda, and if we just go through them for accuracy, so page 4, and any comments just for alterations on there, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, and page 10. Anyone got any comments, or can we take them as approved on assent?
Approve them, Chair.
Thank you very much. So, Sammy, then those minutes are approved. Thank you. So we move on then to item number 5, which is the endorsement of the joint Norfolk Strategic Planning Framework version 3. Members,
Sorry, Chair.
Chairman.
Chair. Item 4 is the forward plan.
oh, sorry,
Obviously,
forward plan. Sorry.
just to
I was
make
looking
members
at.
aware that the forward plan does cover items for this agenda, and we have just put at the bottom that obviously the forward plan will be updated once the new committee timetable has been agreed.
Sorry, members. I was jumping ahead there. Thank you, Sammy. Right. Item 5 then is the endorsement of the joint Norfolk Strategic Planning Framework version 3. Members are asked to consider the Strategic Planning Manager's report, which can be found on pages 12 to 146 of the agenda. And I'll pass over now to Sam Hubbard to present.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. So the purpose of this report is to request endorsement of the latest version of the Norfolk Strategic Planning Framework. This is now the 3rd version of the framework to come before this committee and brings the framework fully up to date to support the latest round of local plans across Norfolk. The Norfolk Strategic Planning Framework is a key document in demonstrating each of the councils in Norfolk that they have met their statutory duty to cooperate when preparing local plans. Now, members may be aware that the Great Yarmouth Borough Council's Local Plan Part 2 is currently going through examination. We've had hearings last week and a few weeks ago, and the existing version of the Norfolk Strategic Planning Framework has been central in demonstrating that our local plan complies with the duty to cooperate. So the Norfolk Strategic Planning Framework is a set of broad, high-level agreements between the Norfolk authorities on strategic cross-boundary planning matters. These include things such as housing and agreeing the approach to the levels of housing development across the county, also economic development, infrastructure issues, and also environmental matters. So the preparation of the framework is overseen by a member forum consisting of elected councillors from each of the local authorities across Norfolk, and Councillor Graham Plant from Great Yarmouth Borough Council sits on this. Now, the member forum endorsed the latest version of the Norfolk Strategic Planning Framework, which is before you this evening, back on the 25th of January, and each of the other Norfolk councils will be considering this document over the course of the next couple of months. So the latest version of the framework is included on pages 17 to 125 of the agenda document pack. So in terms of the kind of changes to the Norfolk Strategic, for this version of the Norfolk Strategic Planning Framework, there's a small number of changes from the previous version, and these include a new section on climate change with associated guidance on how local plans can better address climate change. It's got a new section on health, which is obviously very topical at the moment, to emphasise the role of planning and creating healthy environments. It's also got some changes to the section on telecommunications with some new associated guidance to support the rollout of 4G and 5G across the county. We've also got changes to the economic section of the framework to reflect the new Anglia Local Enterprise Partnership's recent COVID-19 economic recovery restart plan. There's also a revision to the agreement on green infrastructure to highlight some of the ongoing work which the authorities across Norfolk are doing to try and address the recreational impacts associated with new development on protected habitats across the county. We've also got a couple of new agreements, one to support the work of Water Resources East, and the other is an agreement with the Marine Management Organisation just to establish that there's no cross-boundary issues that haven't been resolved between each of the coastal local authorities within Norfolk and the Marine Management Organisation. So alongside that, the latest version of the framework does include some new signatories, including the Marine Management Organisation, but also Water Resources East and Active Norfolk. So in conclusion, the Norfolk Strategic Planning Framework is an important document to help ensure all councils across Norfolk meet their responsibilities under the duty to cooperate. And this latest version makes a number of improvements and ensure the framework is up to date to support the local plans across Norfolk. Happy to take any questions.
Many thanks, Sam. Has anyone got any questions for Sam on this document? Councillor Tony White.
Yes, Chairman, I've got several questions. Do you want me to go through them? Are you going to go through page by page, or do you want me to go through the questions and comments I've got to make now on these?
Yeah, if you just answer your questions then, or comments, whatever they are, Tony. Yeah.
Okay.
And then maybe Sam can answer them
by page,
one by one.
Chairman.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, okay. On page 25 and 26, it's talking about the aggregates, and obviously in terms of the marine aggregates, which I get concerned about because it doesn't mention too much about them. And although we have very little to do with that, obviously we're talking about land aggregates in the main and some of the areas that are of concern to us over the possibility of them being mined. Certainly the Fritton Woods one has obviously been very controversial in the past, and thankfully that's not been passed as an area to be taken aggregates from. But what I also get concerned about is the marine side of things. Although we don't have much to do with them, we are actually a consultee, and I do get annoyed sometimes in terms of the amount of aggregates we're taken out of the seabed, and I would say probably 70 or 80% of them are from the North Sea, and that does affect us, and I believe it affects us quite a lot. Now, there's nothing in there in terms of the details about how much is actually taken out, but I am aware that the majority of the aggregates are actually taken for export. The majority of those that dredged aggregates go for export, and I'm just concerned that this document doesn't seem to address those issues. And I know scientists probably say, well, it doesn't have an impact. I'm still of the opinion that dredging of the seabed does have an impact on coastal erosion, and that's my view, and nobody will ever get me away from that particular point of view. But I think it should be worth mentioning in there that whilst there is this particular issue about the shortage of aggregates and everything else, then I think what we need to do is to look after our own construction areas rather than probably looking at the taking aggregates from what I consider as land-based aggregates, which are in quite nice areas. So I was just wondering whether or not the officer would sort of comment in terms of the marine aggregates, and whether he could find out what the actual take is from the seabed off our coast, and if we actually do comment to the Marine Maritime Organisation when these licences are actually put forward. I know the Borough Council has done in the past, but I'm just wondering whether or not something should be put in the document to cover that we are a consultee and we should look at these issues very carefully in terms of that. I don't know whether you want to cover on that one, Sam, before I go on to the next.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Just in terms of, maybe just taking the issue of marine aggregates first. So, see, that area is outside of the control of the local planning authorities within Norfolk, and therefore that's why it's not really touched on it within this document. I did mention the Marine Management Organisation, and they've become a signatory to this document. Now, they have policies within their marine plan in the East Inshore and East Offshore Marine Plan that do cover those sorts of licensing activities and provide a policy. And some of the consideration that they'll have permitting or licensing that those would include any potential impacts on hydrological processes. So I think that probably is covered in their plan, and it's probably the appropriate place for it to be rather than within the Norfolk Strategic Planning Framework. The point about the minerals is of course Norfolk County Council is a mineral planning authority for terrestrial minerals, and it is important that the other local authorities in exercising their planning roles that they take into account the minerals and waste local plan, and that's essentially what the agreements in Agreement 29 is trying to address. I suppose one of the big things that the Norfolk minerals and waste local plan tries to do is to try to safeguard mineral resources where they are on development sites, so that mineral resources aren't needlessly sterilised by new development. So One part of that agreement is around ensuring when you've got development sites coming forward where there is a potential for a mineral resource underneath that particular area of land, to explore or to get the developer to assess whether they can reuse any of the potential mineral resource within that land on their site, and therefore that minimises the need potentially for quarries elsewhere. In terms of the overall figures, in terms of the amount extracted from the North Sea, I don't have those figures to hand, and I'm not entirely sure where if I can get them. I know I could probably get hold of some of the figures around the amount of marine aggregates that are used within Norfolk, but I can take that away and see if I can report something back to you.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that, Chairman. Can I just move on to page 32, which is regarding the economy, Norfolk's economy, and comment on page 32 in the second paragraph, which says employment levels are growing. There is a highly skilled and versatile population with good graduate retention rates. It then goes on below to say skills levels in the workforce are relatively low, and certainly in our area that's the case. I've had a look at the NOMIS, the government's statistics that they've got on this. What concerns me is we talk about employment levels are growing, but in our area, I think that they've remained fairly static, and they just don't add up in terms of growth that we should be seeing for the amount of investment that we've had over the last 20 odd years, such as the outer harbour and obviously the dualling of the roads, etc., and some of the other work that's done. So, I mean, looking at the statistics, when we take overall the actual jobs that they're there, and that's including self-employed and everybody. In the year 2000, there were 40,000. In the year 2010, there were 46,000. And in the year 2019, 43,000. So it's a fairly flexible workforce. But when you take the self-employed and others out of the equation, in 2016 the figure is 39,000. In 2019 it's gone down 2,000 to 37,000. So I'm just always sceptical about when we start hearing about figures about, you know, there's going to be growth and we're going to create 1,000 jobs. It's not the actual reality that I can actually see in terms of it. And obviously one of the main concerns that I have is in manufacturing, because again, manufacturing in Great Yarmouth, the number of jobs here in 2016 was 3,000, and in 2019 again was 3,000. So you can see where there isn't sort of this pattern of growth where we've actually had the investment in, and, you know, such as the outer harbour, for instance, and, you know, looking over the figures before in 2007, the prediction was 1,000 new jobs there. We talk about the energy park, probably another 1,000 jobs, but it doesn't seem to be coming to fruition. I just think, looking at reality, what we need to do is to look at the actual facts of what we've had in the past to make it a more realistic figure, so that we can actually look at things back and say, well, yes, that is what was actually done. And when we turn to the unemployed, or certainly people on benefits, again, that's remained sort of fairly static. And I'm taking the months of January here. In January 2019, it was about 5.4%, 3,100. In January 2020, again, it was 5.4%, 3,085. In January 2021, it was 4,895. Obviously, for the people through the pandemic. So, you know, that figure is quite false. But I think that, you know, we look at this area, and when we look at Norfolk and East Anglia, it's a fairly prosperous area, and we all look at those figures. And I know it talks about the deprivation areas, such as in Great Yarmouth, but I'm just worried that we get sort of swallowed up into these figures, and the reality is so far away from the truth. And I think there should be some reality there and some figures that we can actually look at and pinpoint to see where jobs have actually come from, where jobs have actually moved, rather than saying, well, we're going to do this project, the energy park, and it's going to create another 900 jobs or 1,000 jobs. It may well do. But, you know, the record proves that, you know, jobs have come from other areas and gone into those. So it's just really a comment just to say, you know, in terms of some of the figures and some of the growth areas that we're looking at, I don't think, you know, we can sort of take it at face value. I think we have to question these sometimes and have a more in-depth look about what the reality is, when we start talking at these issues. And I'm not decrying any of the investment, because I think the investment that we've had has been good and it's been needed and it's been wanted. But I just think we need to look at it in terms of Great Yarmouth rather than, obviously as Norfolk. I know this is a Norfolk strategy, but I think, each area of Norfolk has got its own particular area. And it's just a comment that I wanted to make in terms of what my concerns are about the reality with the government statistics, which are there in black and white, and what we push forward in terms of what our futures. And there's nothing wrong with being positive in going for I firmly believe in that. But I think we really need to be sort of realistic in terms of what can be achieved. And certainly in the energy side of things, with the offshore wind, the main jobs are in the manufacturing side. And I know we've always aspired to be, a manufacturer of something to do with this. The reality is those jobs have gone to places like Humberside, unfortunately. I'm hoping that, I'm wrong. I'm hoping that there's a manufacturer going to set up in Great Yarmouth, and I keep my fingers crossed that it will happen. But that's not been evident so far that we're going to get that. We will always be a service place, and it will always create certain jobs, but not the numbers that we were used to in the previous energy. Just a comment, Chairman, on that. Shall I move on to the next one?
Yes, please.
On page 42, the housing projection, perhaps these figures here on the housing projection, page 49. It's on page 49. Let me just get my... this is household projections. It just shows a growth for us, Chairman. What concerns me of 2,000 or just over 2,000 properties to 2026. Now, in planning terms, we've got to, I believe, under the new regulations, for a 5-year plan, we've got to create over 3,500 properties. But in here, on this page, it doesn't evident that. It says quite clearly that it's just going to be over. They're expecting over just over 2,000 between 2018 and 2026. I don't know what if I've got the right figures there, but perhaps Sam, you could comment on that for me. Just respond to that particular point.
Yes, of course. So there are two different things. So the household projections are what the Office of National Statistics expects in terms of what might happen in terms of demographic trends and in a number of households across the particular area. Now, our housing requirement is slightly different in that it takes a household projection and then the government requires us to add a market or an affordability uplift to take into account the affordability of housing in the area. So it goes up higher than the actual household projection. So the requirement in our local plan part 2 for Great Yarmouth is 363 homes per year over the period from 2020 to 2030. So those numbers aren't necessarily fully comparable with these figures, and the housing requirement in the local plan has to be based on the 2014 household projections, because rather than the 2018 household, the more recent 2018 household projections.
Right. Okay. It's just my concern as far as that concerned. And my final bugbear is the enterprise zone. On page 66, we talk about the enterprise zone there. I have questioned this before on policy, Chairman, if you remember, and it was said that they were actually going to review this. I've always considered that, although I accept that we're one of the more successful enterprise zones in the country, there is an area of land at the harbour which is laying sterile. It is got the turbines that go on there for the construction, but this could be creating jobs. And I've asked before whether or not they would look at actually being able to move the boundaries of the enterprise zone to take in an area where there could actually be growth in manufacturing, because I don't know how many hectares there are on the South Deans area, which is opposite the Billfinger and the Sea Jacks, that piece of land there. That is not creating any any employment or any jobs. And I think, you know, when we're talking about enterprise zones, because of the gains that they have, the planning gains, the financial benefits that there are to attract industry, it doesn't seem to be working there. I'm just wondering whether or not there's been any movement on that. I have asked it before, both in economic development and policy, and it came back that they were actually reviewing this and having a look at this, but it doesn't seem to be anything within the report.
Do you want me, Sam? Councillor White, we are looking at this, as you know, and working with through the town deal fund that we've just got. Oh, Sheila's going to answer. Go on then, Sheila. Do you want to come in there, Sheila?
Chairman, I was just going to say we do have a master plan
Yeah, we do.
for the whole of the South Deans area, which includes looking at how we would use the area within the enterprise zone and the area within the LDO. I'm very happy to arrange for that to be, if that hasn't been shared with economic development, for that to be brought into the economic development committee.
Yeah. I've seen the you know, the master plan in terms of the energy park, etc. What I'm saying,
no, this isn't the energy park. I'm talking about the whole of the South Deans area.
Okay.
It's a piece of work we presented as part of the bid to the manufacturing. Can't remember exactly the title of the fund. Inward Investment for Manufacturing. Yeah. And we still have an opportunity to bid again into that fund. So we haven't lost the ambition of securing a manufacturer, but we have to secure viability funding to do that.
Okay. Okay, as long as it's not on the agenda, I mean, that's the main thing. But I think, you know, when we've got the advantage and the benefit of this, I think we should, you know, take advantage of it and obviously try to promote that side of the things.
Anything else, Councillor White?
That's it for the moment.
Right.
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks for your indulgence.
Thank you. Councillor Carpenter.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I would just like to say to Sam, brilliant report. Thank you very much. It takes a while to wade through it, but it's one of the most comprehensive reports I've seen in a long time. And thank you very much for all your time you've spent on this. Thank you.
Councillor Plant.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. This is a comprehensive report, and it's a very well thought out report as well. This has gone through every scenario, council across Norfolk. It's a very complex picture, and it's all been brought together in one document for us to be able to have a look at tonight. And contrary to Councillor Wright, I think it gives us an opportunity and the foresight to look forward in how we develop Norfolk out over the next few years, and it gives us a roadmap of how to get there. So I'm quite pleased that we've got this now, because this roadmap will tell us how development goes on across Norfolk, which industries we'll be looking at, and which where we can put residential. So it is a very good report in that respect, and it is county-wide, and it's not Yarmouth specific. I think I have to make that point, because just picking up things that are just for Great Yarmouth is great, and we did have our input into this as well. And I think together, as a document, it pulls together all the things that we need to make sure that Great Yarmouth has a future. And that's with the MMO, it's with the Environment Agency, it's with the Highways Agency, it's with Norfolk County Council as a lead flood development. And as you know, we've got a new team together on that as well. I think it's where we need to be at this particular stage, and it gives us an opportunity to spring forward with new opportunities and take up new opportunities as they present themselves. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Just very briefly, Chairman, just to come back, shouldn't be contrary to what I've said, because I think I was trying to be constructive in what I said in terms of asking particular questions about the report. I didn't slam the report. I said, you know, I want to move forward on this, and I'm quite happy with, you know, the way things have gone. So I don't want people to think that was a criticism. It was trying to ask questions on behalf of the residents and certainly people in Yarmouth, which I think are relevant, and the questions have been answered, and that's what I believe that we're here for. So I don't think it should be contrary to what I said. I think it should be welcome that you know, we're reading the report and we're taking the report forward.
Yeah, thank you. Have I got any other people who wish to speak? No, I've got to see no hands coming up. Right, so I'm now going to thanks Sam for presenting that, and as Councillor Carton said, a real comprehensive report. And thanks for answering the questions that we had. So, members, the recommendation is on page 12, and it is endorse the Norfolk Strategic Planning Framework and accompanying guidance on climate change and 4G and 5G infrastructure. Members, when Sammy puts the vote up in the chat, please don't put anything else in the chat until we've all had a chance to vote. So over to you then, Sammy. Let's see how the electronic voting goes. If you'd just like the result, Sammy, will be fine.
That was unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, members. Right, that worked well then. So we'll move on to item number 7, which is the flexible working policy. Members are asked to consider the head of organisational development's report.
Six, Chairman.
Oh, sorry, 6. Sorry. How come? I don't know what. Oh, because I turned the page over. Item 6. That's only on one line at the bottom. Sorry, on my script. Sorry. Right, which was the one I was actually talking about. Members are asked to consider the head of the organised report, which we found on pages 147 to 159 of the agenda, and I believe Sarah Tate is going to present this. Members, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. The policy replaces the 2 flex schemes which the Council currently operates. The new policy has been developed following engagement with staff across the Council. The Flexi Time scheme reflects the needs of service and gives staff the ability to work flexibly whilst enabling managers to manage their services in a consistent way and to respond to customer need. Used in conjunction with the flexible working policy, which you will also see this evening, it ensures that the Council can continue to deliver its services in line with customer need with a flexible and agile workforce and help staff to maintain a work-life balance. Happy to take any questions.
Many thanks, Sarah. I know this has been through all the staff and that and 3LT and the unions. Any comments from members? If not, we can move to the vote. Sammy, would you like to put the vote up then again in the...
Chair, as we've had no debate on this, I have had confirmation that we can, if there's no objections, take it out by assent if we've had no debate and comments raised.
Okay, so are we all happy then, members, to take this on assent? If there's anyone against, then put it in the chat. I wouldn't thought there would be. Like I said, this has been discussed with all staff and that. No.
Yeah, there's nothing in the chat, Chairman, so that can be confirmed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, so we then move on then to the flexible working policy, which is on item 7, which is on pages 160 to 181. Members are asked to consider the head of organisation develops report, and once again over to Sarah to present.
Thank you, Chairman. The current right to request flexible working procedure has been reviewed and updated to include additional information and better guidance for employees, managers and HR on how to deal with flexible working requests. Used in conjunction with the Flexi Time policy, it ensures that the Council can continue to deliver its services, again in line with customer needs, with a flexible and agile workforce and help staff to maintain a work-life balance. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions on this one again? Similar, obviously, the last one being discussed with staff, ELT, the unions. Can we do this one on assent as well then, Sammy? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's fine, Chairman.
So unless I see anyone put anything in the message bar, we'll take it that everyone's in favour of this as well.
Yeah, nothing in the chat bar, Chairman, and no hands raised.
Right,
so that
thank
can
you
be
very much. So
agreed.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for presenting both of those. Thank you. So we then move on then to item number 8, which is revenues write-off report. members are asked to consider the Revenue and Benefit Service Managers report, which can be found on pages 182 to 197 of the agenda. And I'll pass over to Stuart Brabham to present.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening. Members of the committee are asked to note that this report is in relation to debts and recovery actions that predate the COVID-19 pandemic and should not be recognised as any reflection on any financial impacts on businesses as a result of this pandemic. The committee last considered the revenues write-off report and schedules of debt in July 2019. The next set of write-offs were due to be brought to the committee in March 2020, but were withdrawn because of the lockdown situation. Consideration for writing off debt is given where it's held to be uneconomical to recover, is time barred, or is legally unenforceable. Under the law, there's an obligation to take reasonable steps to collect debts. There are, however, many situations where there is a justification for writing off debts, where reasonable steps have been taken regarding each individual case. Where debt is irrecoverable, write-off such debts is important so that the council can budget for bad debts. An integral part of debt recovery is the effective management of bad debts to ensure resources are applied efficiently to the collection of monies outstanding, which can reasonably be expected to be collected. The council has a bad debt provision within its financial accounts as part of its monitoring process, and the amount of this provision is reviewed annually. Before this report was put together, final checks were made to determine if there are any material changes that would remove the need for the write-off of the debt. Where the council writes off debt and then later finds there's been a change in the customer's circumstances, we can reinstate and pursue recovery of the monies owed. The report therefore seeks the approval and authorisation of the schedules of individual business rate and sundry debt accounts where the debt is recommended for write-off. Thank you.
Yes, we've got some people then. So I've got Councillor Myers, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just two questions with regards to page 184, W08. Sort of any debt not recoverable after 6 years, that's because of current legislation, what it is. Unless a liability order has been applied to that debt, then the recovery of that debt can be extended past the 6-year statute of limitations. If that's the case, are there any limitations on where a liability order can be applied for regarding a debt? And specifically on page 195, if there aren't any limitations, why was not a liability order applied to that debt as detailed on 195? Thank you.
Liability orders are in relation to business rates or council tax, and these are sundry debt accounts, so we can't actually apply for liability orders, but the statute of limitations still applies on 6 years.
That's fine. That's explained the limit of the ability to apply a liability order to certain debts. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Councillor Wright.
Yeah, that was a question I was going to ask. Councillor Myers has just asked that, so I got that one sorted out. Just on page 197, this is the market rent 6-day stall. Just a question. This goes back to 2015, some 6 years ago, and it seemed to sort of drift on and on. I know some action was taken, but presumably, I mean, obviously in 2019 he was made the customer sort of was made bankrupt in 2019. That was some 4 years afterwards. Were they still trading right the way through till 2019? If so, why didn't we take further action on them? Because I'm sure we would have done if it had been somebody living in a tenancy.
My understanding is there was quite a lot of complex circumstances around the license arrangements and the individual sundry debt payer, specifically, or the market trader. Processes were put in place to apply for a charging order in order to recover the amount outstanding, but the person didn't own their home, and therefore we weren't able to pursue any further. I think it was a very complex case with different issues around the trade, around the kind of license arrangements, which delayed recovery.
And Councillor, I think it's something that we've now put into place for when the market traders do sign up their new licenses as well. I believe when I spoke about this and whatever, and I believe that has been now. So when the traders now move into their new stalls, this won't happen again, Councillor White. Right. So okay. And did you say you had another question or
well,
that was it?
Just a brief one. In terms of one of the case on there about the wrong information was put on a document and there was a claim. Is that not regarded as fraud, or would that be just regarded as a civil debt?
Just refer me to which one it was, please. Sorry.
It's page 196.
96 again. Sorry, that one.
I'm sure there must have been circumstances surrounding this, but I just wondered, you know, would we normally look at this if somebody had, you know, put false information on a
oh, I see. From a fraud point of view,
yeah.
Yes, we would have looked into it and considered whether the overpayment was considered valid for a fraud. I've not got that information to hand, but I can find out.
But it may well have been innocent. I mean, it may well have been an innocent oversight, but
it could well have been.
That was just a general question, really, rather than looking at a particular case.
We actually don't deal with fraud within the Borough Council anymore. The DWP do housing benefit fraud now, and we would refer those cases to them for them to do the prosecution if they felt it was valid or not. As I say, I haven't got the information here at the moment, so I can't answer.
No. It's a general question. Like I said, that, you know, it's difficult. Yes. Presumably extenuating circumstances, and like I said, it may well have been an oversight, but it was a general question just raised by that particular case. That was all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Brian Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On all these business rates, I've said this in the past, and I'm going to say it again. Why don't we lobby the government to make the person who owns the property responsible for the rates? This happens all the time. They're the people who's making the money out of it, and we are the one who picks up the tab. I think this is an ongoing problem, and can anything be done about it?
The government, excuse me if I can, government are conducting a fundamental review of business rates. In fact, I think they've just in the last couple of days released a document on how they're going to review business rates and make it fit for the future, if you like, and they may well be considering some of these areas. And I think local authorities have made representations because we were consulted and we put in replies to that consultation. But there is going to be a fundamental review of business rates, so that, you know, some of those things may be taken into account.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions? Right. So, members, the recommendation is on page 182, and it's approve and authorise individual write-offs as detailed within Schedule 1 business rates and Schedule 2 sundry debt. And Sammy will put the vote.
Unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Stuart, thank you very much for presenting that, and thanks for your help as well to me today for the questions I asked you today as well on another matter. Thank you.
That's fine.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, so that's item 8 dealt with. I'll get back to my agenda. So we now move on then to item number 9, which is the Seafront Master Plan for Great Yarmouth and Galston. This is on members are asked to consider the strategic directors report, which can be found on pages 198 to 200 of the agenda, and I'll hand over to Kate Watts to present. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. I haven't actually prepared much to say because much of the proposal of developing a seafront master plan for Great Yarmouth and Galston will be developed by the members' working group this paper is asking members to form. We have already seen the benefits of a strong master plan can provide through our town centre master plan and the subsequent successful funding around the future High Streets and Town Deal awards. A seafront master plan will connect well with this in Great Yarmouth, and whilst it is clear a plan for Galston will be distinctly different, developing this under the umbrella of an overarching seafront master plan will be helpful. This committee is asked to create a members' working group consisting of 7 members, politically balanced, to progress this work, of which this committee will receive future updates. Happy to take any questions.
Well, you're going to get plenty of them because there's plenty of people who want to speak on this. Right, so I've got Councillor Plant first. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, the paper itself sets out the principles, and I think that's a pretty good way of starting. What I can't agree with is that we have a single members working group working on Great Yarmouth and Galston. And the reason I say that is because Great Yarmouth has a different demographic than Galston. And although Galston has a seafront, the same as Great Yarmouth, it doesn't have all the paraphernalia that goes with Great Yarmouth. And it is a little bit more of a localised, it's a local beach as much as anything else. So from that point of view, I'm not happy that we would have one working group working on both sets of the master plan, or even if it's a master plan where Galston and Yarmouth are mishmashed together in some way. And I think that would detract from the importance that we set on making sure that Galston has a separate master plan to Great Yarmouth. So I'm quite clear that the master plan that we have at Great Yarmouth has been brilliant in bringing in investment, and we can evidence that as much as anybody likes. What we haven't had is a master plan for Galston, and therefore we haven't had the same kind of investment that we would see in Great Yarmouth. I'm keen to see that we do get the investment in Galston, and I think the only way to do that is to have a bespoke master plan for Galston and a bespoke master plan for Great Yarmouth. So you'd have a north of the river and a south of the river master plan. I know this is more work for officers, and I really appreciate that, and I feel it. But having said that, I think that the people who live in Galston would expect to have a master plan for Galston, which is not a master plan for Great Yarmouth, because Great Yarmouth is doing really well in what it does in formulating its plans. I think Galston and Galston members specifically would like to see a separate working group working on a master plan specifically for Galston. And I'm proposing that tonight, that we don't go along with the recommendation. It says establish a member working group consisting of 7 members, politically balanced. I'm saying we work up 2 groups, one for Yarmouth and one for Galston, with Galston members on the Galston and Yarmouth members on the Yarmouth. And whether that's 5, whether that's 5, 3 and 2, or 7, 5 and 3, I don't know, but 5 and 3, yeah, that'll make 7, doesn't it? Sorry, but
you mean 4 and 3.
Yeah. But I apologise. Yeah, but the fact is, I think that Galston needs to have a master plan for what it is to go forward. We've got an awful lot of older buildings on the seafront at Galston, like the ocean rooms, like the theatre. We've got the Georgian cliffs, which Yarmouth doesn't have, and they need to be refurbished. They need to be brought up to standard, and we haven't got a plan of how to do that. We can put it in a maintenance programme, but that's about it. And I think that we need to fully understand what it is we want Galston to look like and what it is fully we want Yarmouth to look like. And in that way, I think we can draw in the finances that's needed into Galston specifically, so that we can do that for Galston as well. And Galston, I mean, this also says Galston a seafront master plan, and Galston is a little bit, it's, we've got the high street, we've got the riverside, and then we have the seafront as well. So Riverside Seafront, the riverside itself is looking a bit unkempt as well. I mean, at the end of the day, we don't own the riverside. Whoever does own it never sweeps it. doesn't get rid of the weeds, doesn't get rid of the ugly mess that's down there. And if we had a master plan where we could plug into a funding stream, I think we could do a little bit more about cleaning up that Riverside area as well. So I'm probably saying as well, it needs to say, and I don't want to do that tonight. I think we could talk about it more going forward. But if it's about a seafront master plan, it should be a Riverside Seafront master plan for Galston, because it goes round that way for the tourism element as well. It's what people look at when they come here and visit. And it may well be that we need to talk to the port as well, because they own the pier and the pier's looking messy. We can't do anything about it. They own it. But if it was part of a master plan, then maybe they'd be interested in working with us to improve what's going on down there as well. So just to refresh, Chairman, I'd like 2 member working groups, one specifically for Great Yarmouth, one specifically for Galston. And I'll leave it at that for now, Chairman. Hope somebody seconds me.
Thank you.
Second that, Chairman.
Kate, it's been seconded by Councillor Carpenter. Kate, did you want to come back in first, or before I go, because there's other people want to speak, or do you want to do it all at the end?
Just very briefly, I was just going to come in with what Graham was saying, that in terms of determining what area the master plan's covered, that obviously that would be part of the members' working group that would help look at where we would cut what that plan covers going forwards. That was the only comment I wanted to make, Chair. Yeah,
and for the numbers, I know we did set up a 5-member, or I did put some names in for a 5-member working group for Galston. So is that what you're saying, Graham? Because it does say 7 on there. So is it 5 or 7?
I would suggest 5 for each, Chairman, because otherwise we run out of members.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. All right. Right. Okay. Right. Councillor Flaxman-Taylor, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks, Kate. It's a really good report. I really like the development process that's been taken here. I do agree with Graham. I think it would be better to have 2 separate groups. There's so many excellent projects that are taking shape along Great Yarmouth Seafront at the moment, and I think that Galston would be further behind, and it would be a complete refresh, brand new start to the Galston plan. So many different ideas. Where do I start? But I definitely think we need to have this in 2 separate strategies moving forward, master plans, whatever they're decided at the end of the day. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Chairman. Agree with Emma and Graham's points. I think having 2 committees or 2 working groups makes sense, because it can be in the specialist focus, not just for Galston, but also for Great Yarmouth as well, because both areas are very distinct. We are, there's commonality, and there's a beach and there's a sea, but we're dealing with very different beasts apart from that. So I think it makes complete sense that we do divide the 2 teams. And from the point of view of Galston, I think it's a very welcome initiative, not only because it will hopefully help us leverage investment moving forward, but also it will enable us to move away from a kind of piecemeal approach to the seafront, and instead we can bring together a plan and a direction of travel which also we can engage with residents about, so that there is actually a plan which it's not just the councils, it will be the community's plan to ensure that actually everyone understands what the direction of travel is going to be, and it can be collectively brought in too.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Councillor Wright.
Thanks, Chairman. Well, I certainly for one will oppose this, and I oppose it for the reasons that we're one borough. And when I look at things as a councillor for Nelson Ward, I look at things for the borough as a whole. And I think it's really wrong for us now in this particular time, when we're under pressure, to ask the officers to set up 2 separate working groups, when one working group from across the political spectrum, from across the various parts of the borough, can actually put together a master plan which takes into account everything that either Galston or Great Yarmouth needs. I mean, the bid doesn't split itself to the particular areas. They do their investment based on what the businesses are like throughout the borough, whether it's fair or not, but that's the system. Our tourist authority doesn't say, let's look at Yarmouth and look at Galston separately. I think it's absolutely ridiculous to suggest that we should have two separate master plans looking at two seaside resorts in the same borough and in the same town. I mean, it's been like this for years. And the problem is that when there's not investment put into it, it's the council's fault for not doing that. I mean, Chairman, I remember when I was a member of Parliament, I got some regeneration money for some of the town's services. And the administration at the time, and it was Barry Cullen was the leader, and I know that for a fact, that what happened at that particular time was the £2.5 million was spent in St George's Park, and I pleaded with them to actually spread it across the borough. So it's a decision taken by councillors. Now, if we can't sit down as a working group, as a cross-party group, looking at the borough, looking at the two areas, then I think that's ridiculous. You know, let's have two separate councils. Let's have a town council in Gorse and a town council in Great Yarmouth. I've never heard anything so ridiculous in my life, and so divisive as well. It will put town against town, and it will say, well, there are these magic money trees now, I know, but there are finite resources, and I want to look at things as a whole. And I just think that we should look at Gorleston and Great Yarmouth as one as far as the borough is concerned. You know, I mean, I'm a councillor, as I said, in Nelson Ward. I live in Gorleston, and I want to see the two areas, and not just those areas, but also Hemsby, you know, and Hopton, you know, these sort of areas. So I don't look at this, and I know this is a master plan for Gorleston and Great Yarmouth, but please do not separate them into two working groups, because it will put town against town, and there'll be a competition about who's going to have the policy in going forward. So please, I plead with you, do not separate this. Make it as one master plan for the borough, and let's recognise that we've got these major resorts. We've got Gorleston Resort and we've got the Yarmouth Resort, but we've also got other resorts as well. Don't do this, I plead with you. Please do not.
I think Councillor White, what Councillor Plant said actually was north and south. So obviously the river would be. I don't think he actually mentioned any. But I'd like to. There's other people obviously want to speak. So Councillor Wainwright.
Well, yeah, thank you. I mean, I think Councillor Plant did make it quite clear that he wanted one for Gorleston and one for Yarmouth. But I mean, as Kate said, we can look at the Riverside as part of the working group. But just let me remind members the reason that this report has come here, because we did have a discussion about a Great Yarmouth master plan, seafront master plan, some months ago, basically. And at that meeting, we then decided that we would incorporate Gorleston into that as well. So we would have a master plan for the whole, for Yarmouth and Gorleston, as Councillor Wright has said. I mean, this is ludicrous. I mean, we have numerous working groups. They reflect the wishes of the whole borough. It's only a working group. The final decisions will come to council, I presume, or policy and resources. So this just makes more and more work. It's divisive. I mean, we should be looking at the thing as a whole. I mean, I represent the Maglin ward, but quite honestly, I'm very, very interested what goes on Yarmouth Seafront as well. And I'm sure members who represent Yarmouth or Belton are interested in it all. So this is ridiculous, and I mean, I will certainly be voting against this, not against having a master plan, but against having two working groups to work this thing through. I mean, it's divisive. It will set Gorleston against Yarmouth. Well, how come they're getting this, they're not? We can look at it as a whole, and I mean, I thought this would go through virtually on the nod, because we're only asking for members to attend, you know, a number of members on the working group. We're now having a big debate on whether we should have two. Well, Graham Plant is completely wrong on this. And as I say, I will be voting against the two working parties, but I want the master plan to go ahead for the whole of the borough. We all represent the whole of the borough overall.
Absolutely.
Although we represent our own wards, but we all represent the whole borough from Winterton to Hopton.
Thank you. Councillor Brian Walker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To carry Graham's argument further, why should people in Hopton and Belton have a say on what happens in Gorleston? It's just drawn borders all over. I know he said it's north and south of the river, but that doesn't matter really, because the input is still coming from councillors outside of Galston. So if you're splitting it up that way, I think I agree with the other speakers. I think it's totally ridiculous. You don't know where the lines are going to split.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Hammond.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, the northern villages and the villages around all have their own local plans, so I don't see this being a bad thing that we give Galston its own working group, and for the seafront, and Yarmouth the same. It seems perfectly logical. They're similar but very different, so why not have two working groups? So I'll totally support this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Flaxman-Taylor's put her hand back up again.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Not once have we stated that we do not want a borough master plan. We spoke about this 6 months ago and brought up that we wanted a Galston strategy to be made moving forward, and this was supposed to be the outcome. We can't have two together. We need two separate.
Thank you. Councillor Wells, did you put your hand back up, or am I?
I did, but largely same points Emma was making. I just would say I do refute the idea that this is necessarily divisive. It is very common to look at specific areas with a specific work, and I don't accept there'll be some fight for resources. What we're doing is we're creating a strategy for the two areas, and they might well be looking for completely different things. I just don't accept that we're drawing artificial lines one bit. You know, as the other councillors mentioned, we represent all of the boroughs, or all of the borough, but that doesn't mean every part of the borough is interchangeable. Different bits of the borough require different things.
Thank you. I'm going to bring in the Chief Exec first. I know she's further down my list, but Sheila, do you want to come in?
I suppose what I was going to say is the town investment plan, or the town deal area, covers both Great Yarmouth and Galston. We don't know yet what the levelling rules will be around the levelling up agenda. To some extent, it doesn't really matter whether we have one working group or two working groups, because at the end of the day, they need to complement each other and they need to sit within the town investment plan. And I would urge whatever master plans we develop to consult through the town board, and the final sign off would be at council anyway, and they need to complement. They need to. They will be different, but there needs to be a narrative for any applications for government funding that shows how the area works as an area, as an economic area. They're not two distinct economic geographies, and government do not recognise two separate economic geographies. Mm-hmm. So under the Levelling Up Fund, we've been identified as a Category 1 area. Why? Not because of Galston, it's because of the statistics that relate to Great Yarmouth. So we do need to be careful that we don't separate our areas, because what you might find is that actually then you're inadvertently excluding Galston from being able to access funding. So we do, however we develop this, we will ensure that the narrative sits within a town investment plan that covers the whole of the, well, that doesn't actually cover the whole of the borough, but it covers the urban areas. And as a council, when we're looking at investment in terms of other funding streams beyond the town deal, we will look to ensure that we maximise investment into the whole of the borough. I think the issue will become when we prioritise funding, but hopefully that's a problem that we will have in the future, in the same way that we've got for the town deal next, that it would be nice to get to a stage where we have got funding and we have to prioritise projects against that funding. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Sheila. Right, I've got Councillor Tony Wright to come back. Thank you.
Yeah, just to reiterate the point, Chairman, we're duplicating. We're going to be duplicating the work. If the two reports come together, then you're going to have this debate and this argument over who gets the funding for what, and then you're putting Yarmouth against Galston. This way, when you've got one working group looking at the whole picture, then you can present one master plan which is agreeable by that one working group of 7 councillors across the board, who will then put the report forward in terms of where the finances are going to be. But I think when you create 2 of these and then it comes together as one master plan, you're going to say, well, where does the funding go now? And then we'll have that debate about where the funding's going to go. Let's have one working group. I mean, you know, as I said, I'm sure the officers don't want another working group. I mean, with every work that they've got at the present time, the last thing they want is to have 2 working groups meeting. You know, let's just have the one, which is a sensible way forward. I thought when I saw this report, I thought, good, this is something that we need to do. We need to move forward on this. And now what we're doing is we're going to turn the clock back and move it over to Gorleston and Great Yarmouth. And, you know, honestly, I just cannot believe that this is now coming forward from the controlling group to try to have 2 separate boards. I can sit on a board and I can look at the whole borough as a whole, not without the need to looking at Yarmouth or Gorleston individually. I can look at it as a whole because I want the whole of the borough to survive. And I recognise that Gorleston is a completely different animal to Yarmouth. We've always accepted that, but it does need investment. And, you know, and perhaps there's not enough investment gone in there, but I would like to think that a joint master plan meeting, working group, can actually look at that on that basis.
Okay, I'm going to bring in some people who haven't spoken now before we go back to anyone else. Right, so Councillor Myers.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The proposal would suggest that Gorleston, with regards to the master plan, has been underrepresented previously and now needs more representation. I've seen no evidence that Gorleston has been underrepresented in presentation with regards to inclusion in the master plan, and indeed money has been spent down there with splashland and the promenade. And, you know, to quite a degree, to have 2 working parties that then have to come to some form of agreement, well, then there has to be a decision which working party makes the better case for the type of investment coming in. I do think it's another level of bureaucracy that's really, really not needed. Unless, of course, there is absolute evidence that I haven't seen that Gorleston all of a sudden needs separate representation because it's not getting its fair share of the pot.
Thanks, Councillor Myers. Councillor Williamson. You're on mute, I think, Bernard.
Yes.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I must agree with the Chief Executive. I think with the town deal, which we have, which includes both areas, both Yarmouth and Gorleston, we need to look at it in totality, really, to look at the whole area and develop as one. I see this as rather divisive. You need special criteria which area to put funds into, which to develop, and I would rather see it as a coherent strategy to develop both areas at the same time. I would have supported the original proposal fully. I'm sure we all would have done, but this actually brings another aspect to it. Please let's stick to the original proposal. And I asked Councillor Plant to withdraw his proposal.
Thanks, Councillor Williamson. Councillor Colleen Walker.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I tend to agree with what Sheila has just been saying, because I think the plan has set out, the master plan that you're talking about, and having this working group would work better as one. You become divisive and, you know, divide and conquer. Yarmouth would always get priority over Gorleston. It always has had priority over Gorleston. And I would ask the members in Gorleston to remember that when you're knocking on doors, people will always say to you about the amount of funding that goes to Great Yarmouth and nothing comes over to us. You split this committee up and Yarmouth will get the bigger amount of money. And then we face this backlash, which I thought we'd got rid of, working, you know, as a team to make Yarmouth Borough better rather than divisively splitting it into 2. Thank you.
Okay, right, I'm going to just bring in now Councillor Plant, and then I think everyone then has, and then I'm going to go to the recommendation. Councillor Plant.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, interesting that the word divisive has been brought up so many times in this conversation, and this is exactly why we need to look at it in a different way, because we've looked at it in the same way in the past, and Yarmouth has got has usually got and has been looked at in a strategic way. Gorleston hasn't been looked at in a strategic way. This is an opportunity for us to look at Galston in a strategic way and give itself a plan going forward for the next 5, 10 years, 15 years, whatever it is. And it will be done in a way that is for Galston. At the end of the day, I understand exactly what Sheila said, and yes, we do have to go to government with a cohesive plan, otherwise we'll get nothing. And I'm totally with that. That does not really mean that the plan shouldn't be formulated with the thoughts of the people who actually live in the town have. And I'm listening to what the Labour members are saying, and what they're saying is that in the past we've never listened to Galston. We've put everything into Yarmouth, and we don't want to do anything for Galston because that's the way it is. But we'll change now, and what we'll do is we'll have a group of people who are all going to think about Galston and Yarmouth in the same way. Well, it hasn't happened in the past. What we asked for 6 months ago was a strategy for Galston, and then it was thought up that we could have this seafront master plan for Great Yarmouth and Galston. Well, we wanted a strategy for Galston because there isn't one, and there is one for Great Yarmouth, and we are working really well with the one for Great Yarmouth. And I don't think that we should be, and I go along with Sheila on this one, whatever goes into that master plan for either area forms part of the bigger ask for the borough. That shouldn't be a problem. Why is that a problem? Why is it a problem that you should have a master plan for Galston that fits in with a master plan for Great Yarmouth? Because all the villages, believe it or not, have all got their local plans that they're allowed to do and put into the planning system so that in the villages they can say where you can build, what you can do and how you can do it. Galston doesn't have that at the moment. Yarmouth, we're concentrating on and making sure that we get the people of Great Yarmouth into employment, improving the seafront, making sure we've got the offshore wind and energy sector set up, make sure we've got the river set up, make sure we've got the port set up. Galston is still waiting. It's a town in waiting. It wants us to do something in a short period of time to give them a plan of the way going forward. And the people of Galston want to be part of that plan. They want to know what that is and they want to be part of it. So what I'm suggesting, Chairman, is that we do have two separate committees that feed into the master plan of the Borough of Great Yarmouth, and that they both coalesce in that same overall umbrella master plan. The point is, I also think as well that these five, that we do the members working group in fives, but they shouldn't have the same members on either group. You can't have it that you've got one or the other. I think there's got to be 5 members for one group and 5 members for another. And when you're working together, the officers will know how to make that glue into an overall master plan. But people of Galston should have a voice. We should have a voice in how their town develops. And yes, it is. It's been divisive in the past, but I think this will bring us together because the people of Galston will feel that they've got a voice finally.
Thanks, Councillor Plant. Sheila.
Chairman, if it helps and helps all members, I think when we wrote the report, our idea was we'd have one working group, but then of course there would be separate sessions focused specifically on each town, particularly as Galston doesn't have the town centre master plan in the same way that Great Yarmouth does, and there would be different engagement. So the engagement process with residents and the public would be done separately. So I think what's now being proposed is that the 2 working groups run, and instead of having the working group and 2 separate sessions for the town, we have 2 working groups, and policy and resources will be the accountable body where we make sure that it all hangs together and the narrative is correct and it sits within the town investment plan. So I think we can make this work, and it without it being divisive, because the policy and resources committee will be the body that ensures, as these are developed, that they're cohesive in their approach and there isn't any divisiveness. And as officers, we'll work to ensure that as well, obviously.
Right.
Move to the vote, Chairman.
Yeah.
Seconded.
I think we've discussed this quite well. I think all members have spoken, and
Chairman.
Yes, go on then, Councillor.
Just a question, Chairman. Chairman, could you just tell me who is in control of the council? is the Conservative group in control of the council?
Yes, we are.
Presumably, you would have the majority on the working groups.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Right. Why then is Mr. Plant worried about the investment going into Gorton? You've had control of the council for so many years now, so I think the blame should be fairly and squarely at your foot.
Councillor Wright, I think, Councillor Wright, look.
No, you don't want to hear the politics of it.
No, Councillor Wright, look, we've and I've heard it quite often that, and as Councillor Plant has said, that Galston is left behind. So we're now going to, and as the Chief Executive has said, no, Councillor Wright, you've spoke now, and I'm now bringing this to the vote. So the proposition is that there are two.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I've had a question up to ask a question before the vote is taken. I can't vote if I've never had my question answered.
Sorry, Councillor Walker. I thought you had spoken. Sorry, Councillor Walker. Yes, Brian. Sorry.
I have spoken.
Go on in. I'm going to let you speak again. Go on in.
Will the committees have power to act?
No, because they're going to be working groups. Councillor Walker, they're working groups. We're not setting up committees. They're working groups. And as the Chief Executive has just said, the final decision will come back to the Policy and Resources Committee to make the decision. She's just summed that up.
So you know, to waste of time. The Policy Committee is still going to set the policy at the end of the day. That's exactly what we've been saying. So you're now going to have two groups reporting to the same committee. What's the point?
Right, I'm moving to the vote. Sammy, would you? So that I believe the proposition is that there are two working groups with 5 members on, politically balanced, one for Galston, one for Great Yarmouth. Sammy, can you put that up? So that's the by Councillor Carpenter. So Sammy, so the vote will.
To put members on these groups, we want to get this thing working as soon as possible.
3-2, I believe. Councillor Plant said 5 members on each.
Does Councillor Plant make all the decisions? I mean,
no, he made the proper.
Why can't we have it 7?
I'm making recommendations for the people to vote on. Thank you.
Councillor Wainwright, Councillor Plant has made a proposition to have 2 working groups with 5 members on. He did say that, and it was seconded. If you want to make another proposition to have 7 on, that's up to you. But it was said for 5, which I believe, which the Galston one originally was.
I'm fully supporting the one working group, as I said earlier.
Okay. Just let the Chief Executive speak.
Just for clarification, the proposition is a working group of 5, 2 working groups of 5, both to be politically balanced.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That's right. So, Sammy, do you want to put the vote up, please?
No one member on 2 groups on the.
So that is carried, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Right, so we move on then to item number 10, which is the town deal process update, which as members you'll find on pages 201 to 205, and Simon Best is going to present that.
Sorry, Chair, we've not voted on whether to accept the town centre plan yet. That was just a proposal for the committees.
The what?
Chairman, the recommendation for that report was just for the establishment of the working groups.
Yeah. We're now moving on to the town deal one. Did you say what the town? Say that again. Sorry, Councillor Myers. What did you say?
Yeah, sorry. The one that was discussed previously about the town deal with regards to Yarmouth. I thought we'd.
No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do what you said. That was the seafront ones we've just done. All right. Sorry, you're getting like me. You're getting a bit confused. That's all right. No, so we're now going to move on to the town deal process update, and this is the report of this is on 201 to 205, and Simon Best, our regeneration and funding manager, is going to present this. And Simon, just before you do, I'm sure that every member on this committee would like to thank you for all the work you've done. I've sat on the town deal board, as some of the members here have, for the work you've done on this, for getting this through and getting us 20.1 million. Well done. And if you'd just like to, I know the hard work starts now, but over to you, Simon.
Thanks very much, Chairman. As you said, the report starts on page 201 and it provides members with an update on the town deal process. They will all be aware that earlier this month, I think it was the 3rd of March, the government offered Great Yarmouth and Galston heads of terms for a new town deal of up to 20.1 million, but that was against an original ask of 24.8 million to deliver the 10 immediate investment priorities set out in the town investment plan. These are summarised, I think, on the 3rd page of the document in front of you. Government assessors were happy in principle to support all 10 of those. None have been technically eliminated at this stage. The town board needs to prioritise these projects within the 20.1 million funding on offer. And at its meeting on the 16th of March, the board endorsed an objective quantitative analysis as the basis for these decisions. 6 scoring criteria are set out on page 204 of your documentation, and these will be designed specifically to prioritise the more deliverable, higher impact projects, as well as identify where projects could potentially at least be funded through alternative funding streams, such as the new Levelling Up Fund that Sheila referred to earlier. The report also seeks to set out the relevant timeframes we're working to. In order to proceed, and this is all fairly tight, assigned heads of terms must be returned tomorrow, the 24th of March, along with the details of how the town board will prioritise projects and address various conditions. Within 2 months of that, the town board will need to provide some details of those projects being taken forward, alongside updated financial profiles and certain other pieces of information. Stage 2 of the process, the main bit, which must be completed in the 12 months following that, involves detailed project development to demonstrate feasibility, viability and value for money. And these studies will be taken through the Borough Council in line with local assurance processes, and the funding for individual projects will be subject to successfully completing that stage. Some capacity funding has been made to support this process, with an additional 40,000 awarded today to be added to what was remaining from an original tranche of funding when we first started looking at a town investment plan. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just trying to see what Adrian, we voted on item 9 on the amendment which Councillor Plant put forward, and that was passed, just to let you know, on item 9 for the 2 working groups. Okay.
Okay, I just thought that was, we just voted on the amendment, not the actual report.
No. Right, so Councillor Wainwright, you have your hand up, or is that a legacy hand, or?
There's a legacy one, but I didn't get to say what one is anyway.
Okay, right, okay. And so we move on to Councillor Plant, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, obviously a brilliant piece of work by our officers and by the town board as well. I think that's something that we ought to be really proud of, that they've got this far. We now obviously need to go further. Just a quick question: is there any any sustainability built into what the proposals are going to be? Is there going to be any revenue funds that we can use to maintain whatever it is that's being developed? Because in the past we've always had the capital to do something and then the revenue to look after it as, in our budgets. And I haven't read anything in here that says any of it can be used for revenue. So there's a question, I suppose: can any of it be used for revenue to maintain whatever it is that the town board comes up with?
Sheila, do you want to answer that question?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. We can capitalise some of the revenue costs, such as the project management, but we cannot, it's all capital, so there is no revenue. So, for example, in terms of the learning centre, there is no revenue funding to pay for the ongoing running costs. So that's all part of the business case and the appraisal process to make sure that that the business case stacks up in terms of where the revenue will come from and who will be using the building. That's just one example. But we also have the one eye on the Community Renewal Fund, which has been launched, which only provides revenue for that's 90% revenue funding, and as a priority place we can bid for up to £3 million. That is only for this financial year, but that's a precursor to the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. So where we're looking at ensuring that the capital investment we make actually delivers real improvement for our residents, we'll be looking towards those funds for additional revenue, for example, for skills, employment, looking at issues where there's barriers to access, barriers to people accessing skills, employment or learning. So so we are making sure that as by not only are we looking at how we use our own funding, but what new funding streams to make sure that they do complement the capital investment, so capital and revenue sit hand in hand.
Thank you for that, Sheila. That was a concern, but yeah, thank you very much.
Councillor Wright, please.
It's just obviously very good work and well done, Simon, and obviously the team to get this money. Obviously, the investment at any stage is welcome, but particularly now in these difficult times. So certainly well done on the work that you've done there, along with the team, because it's not just one individual, it's a team. Just a couple of questions. First one is in relation to the ice house. It's one of a technical one more than anything. That is going to be a really good project. My only concern is that, as I understand it, because of the structure of the land, the actual new flood defences are going around the ice house. Is there, in your knowledge, I mean, you may not know this, but is there anything in place to prevent the flooding of the ice house, or will that be would that go without any flood protection?
Sheila, do you want to come back in? I see you put your hand straight up there.
Well, so in terms of the capital ask, I don't know whether that's included, but if that is a requirement, then it will need to be included in the cost of the capital build. Refurbishment. So if flooding is an issue, because it links back to what I was just saying about the business case, we wouldn't get the capital unless we've addressed all of the issues, including planning and any other requirements that would need to be factored in terms of cost. Now, don't forget, this is the list of projects which we submitted. All of them passed the government threshold, so none of them have been excluded as being a viable project to take forward. But of course, we've got 20.1 million, not the 24.6 million. So we are going to either have to scale back on some of the projects, or we're going to have to remove some of the projects. So obviously, Simon's outlined the criteria that we'll use with the town deal board to make that difficult decision. But we've also, part of that decision making will be, what do we think we could put into a bid to the Levelling Up Fund, for which we're still awaiting the detailed guidance, although the prospectus was launched last week. So we've got a bit of strategic thinking and positioning to do yet, but any costs associated with the project, including applying for planning permission, any issues that need to be addressed, such as flooding, will all have to be factored into that capital build cost.
Okay, Tony.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right. Councillor Williamson, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I think with regards to the ice house, I think they're addressing with the Environment Agency the issue of flooding, and they've been working very closely with them about their arts. But concerning Councillor Plant's question concerning sustainability, I think most of the projects which are going forward, that I've seen, have got built-in sustainability. Certainly from the Preservation Trust point of view, all our projects have got sustainability built in. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to stack up over a long period of time. Now, I assume this will be the case with most of the projects which have been put forward. In my time on the town board deal, it appears to be the case. There are some which will require extra funding along the educational lines. I can understand that, but most of the others will stack up financially over a period of 20 years or so.
Yeah, I think that's right, Bernard. There's been lots of discussions. As we know, the town deal board has met now for quite a while, and as I said, you've been a member of that, as a couple of other members have as well. So, you know, and now it's for us now, or the board, not for us. It's for the board to decide this. This has come because we, as the policy making committee on the council, we need to obviously, as the recommendation says, you know, accept the heads of terms, and obviously, as it said, they have to be signed by tomorrow. So that's why it's come here tonight.
Yeah.
Tony, have you put your hand back up again to speak, or is that a legacy hand?
No, that's
Okay.
legacy hand.
All right, thank you. So if no one else has got to say anything on this, so the recommendation members are on page 201, and they are accept the heads of terms for a town deal of up to £20.1 million. Note the deadlines for responses, signed heads of terms by the 24th of March 2021 at the latest, and details of interventions being taken forward, and a plan for addressing key conditions by the 24th of May, and that should be 2021 as well at the latest. So Sammy, if you'd like to put the vote up in the chat, please.
Chairman, that was unanimous.
Thank you.
For approval. Sorry, Chair.
It's all right. Right. I'm glad about that. Right. So we move on then, and the next item, just on your agendas, it's been altered on mine. This actually item should item 11. It's the 2021 period 10 budget monitoring report and NUT 21-22, obviously. So so I'll hand over. So it's item number 11. And members are asked to consider the Financial Service Manager's report, which can be found on pages 206 to 247 of the agenda. And Lorna Snow is to present this. Lorna?
Good evening, everybody. Apologies about the title being
That's all right, no problem.
2021, obviously. The budget report covers the actual position until the end of period 10, but also provides the forecast position anticipated for the full year. Paragraph 4.1 on page 210 includes a summary table of the variances against the budget for the forecast, split between those attributed to COVID and non-COVID. It recognises COVID funding received to support service costs and the amount to be used to offset non-service costs as a result of the pandemic. It also highlights non-COVID related underspend on services, which is largely due to staff vacancies from turnover and delays in recruiting staff to vacant posts. It should be recognised that the current surplus position forecast does not capture decisions to be taken as part of the outturn preparation. This includes where requests to carry forward underspends are considered as part of the year-end processes when finalising the outturn position. Also, this does not reflect any decisions to carry forward unutilised COVID funding, where permitted, to support the Council's response, service delivery and the impact on the financial position in the following financial year. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Lorna. Any questions for Lorna? Can't see none in the chat. So, members, the recommendation is on page 206, and it's recommended the committee note the content of the report and the revised forecast for 2021.
Chair, again, as we've had no comment or debate on this item, if there's no objections, we can confirm that by assent, as it's for noting only.
Okay. Okay, members, all happy with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Right, so we move on then to item 12, which is the capital strategy 21-22. Members are asked to consider the Financial Services Manager's report, which will be found on pages 248 to 260 of the agenda. And once again, Lorna Snow to present.
Hello again. This report is presenting the Council's capital strategy for your approval. As a council, we are required to set a capital strategy each year to provide an overview of capital expenditure and how it is to be financed, recognising how capital spend contributes to local service provision. It covers the general fund, housing revenue account and commercial capital spend and financing. The capital strategy is intrinsically linked to a number of strategies, namely the treasury management, investment, asset management and also the medium-term financial strategy. The last of these recognises the ongoing impact of capital financial decisions taken now on future budgets. In light of this, the capital strategy also considers the risks around the capital spend and how these are mitigated, as well as the sustainability of the planned spend. Again, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks again, Lorna. Members, any questions? Sammy, do we have to vote on this because it's got to recommend this to council? So do we need to vote on this?
If there's no objections to the recommendation 3 to council, Chair, then we can take that as assent.
So members, on page 248 is the recommendation that the Policy and Resources Committee recommend to council the 21-22 capital strategy, and I can't see any comments, so I'll take that as passed as well. So we then move on then to the investment strategy 21-22. Members are asked to consider the financial service manager's report, which will be found on pages 261 to 271 of the agenda. And Lorna, third time lucky then. There we go.
This report is presenting the council's investment strategy for your approval. This covers some of the areas within the council's other strategies, such as the capital strategy and the treasury management strategy, but it focuses on commercial and service investment. It recognises the ongoing implications of decisions taken on commercial and service investments now and in the past and their impact on future revenue budget. This provides the framework for specific investment decisions that may be presented as part of a business case in the coming financial year. Again, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Lorna. So members, the recommendation for this are on page 261, that the Policy and Resource Committee recommend to council the 2021-22 investment strategy. Any comments again? If not, we'll take that on assent as well. Sammy, any comments? I can't see any.
No comments, Chairman. So if there's no objections, that is recommended 3 to council.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lorna.
Thank you.
Right, so we move on then to any other business, and I have no any other business or been notified of any. Members, the last item is obviously the confidential minutes, which is item number 16. If members don't want to speak on them, then I can take them as well as read and save closing the meeting, and we can close the meeting from here. So does anyone want to speak on the confidential minutes?
I've had nothing in the chat, Chairman, or no hands raised.
So thank you all very much, members. Thanks, Sammy, for sorting the electronic voting out. Well done. And and thanks everyone for attending, and good evening to you all. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.